I taught myself to code when I was 8, and by the time I was 16, I had an unusual sort of childhood, and that led to me finding any job I could. And I really wanted to work in computing, and I got onto like a government scheme in the UK, and ended up working for a small company that you might know called Ford.
Welcome back to another episode of Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. New episodes every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Today, my guest is Hutton Henry. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Great, great. How are you today?
I'm really well. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I don't think
Yeah,
it's as
thanks for
warm
being here.
here in London as it is in Vegas, but yeah, it's good. I'm pleased
Well,
to be here.
especially this time of year. We're actually in the winter time frame right now, so it's a little colder.
Oh,
But
wow.
last week it was in the low 40s and 30s Fahrenheit, so pretty
Oh my
cold stuff.
gosh. Yeah.
So tell me how you got started in your career. What is it that you've been doing?
Yeah, well, when I was very young, in terms of starting my career, I taught myself to code when I was 8, and by the time I was 16, I had an unusual sort of childhood, and that led to me finding any job I could. And I really wanted to work in computing, and I got onto like a government scheme in the UK, and ended up working for a small company that you might know called Ford, and and it was incredible. I spent 10 years there, starting sort of small, and we ended up having 500,000 users there, rolling out really big systems around the globe, international rollouts. And I really learned from that like experience. It was all about people, international cultures, and they really made change work really well. You could get things done really well. It's one of the best places I've ever worked. And then from there, I went into freelancing and then setting up my own companies.
I see that you transitioned from working in technology at big firms like HP and Ford, right? And now you seem to
Yeah,
focus on investor-backed scale-up firms. What inspired the shift in your career focus?
yeah. So there's been like this theme of M&A all the way back in my Ford days, and they bought Jaguar, and like HP bought Compaq, and there was this whole thing of melding sort of companies together, melding, merging technology. That's been my theme. And long story short, you know, over I would say nearly 10 years ago, I started to work for PE-backed firms. And my main thing was I was trying to work out, why are these integrations so difficult? And I really wanted to find and get on the pre-deal side. And I've been working for the investors definitely for the last 7 years. And in the last year, I decided to pivot and actually help the founders. So founders and CTOs, helping them understand what investors need so they can prepare their business and polish it for exit or investment.
Excellent, excellent. So with your experience in technology due diligence and M&A technology integration, what's the most common challenges that you encounter and how do you address them?
Yeah, I don't have any challenges in doing the work, but I definitely see very similar patterns from company to company. It doesn't matter if it's like an early startup, a scale up, or a large firm. We tend to see growing pains across all of them. And and to be quite specific, there's always cyber problems of some kind of form, and so it's sort of sometimes that's a lack of knowledge, and sometimes it's just not spending the money. As the companies start to scale up, one of the problems is that technology isn't creating the value the business needs fast enough. We have these great plans. We're going to build it the hell out of this business, but the tech team can't build quick enough or produce what they need as fast as they need. And then you'll get the standard things around hiring, and leadership and coaching. I know they're areas that are close to your heart. And as every time the companies move up in terms of investment, the speed increases. So we definitely see the need to really help people once an investment's happened.
Excellent. You mentioned teamwork, and teams. So,
Yeah,
considering your interest in tech team psychology, how do you
yeah.
approach enhancing team productivity?
Well, if I'm allowed to, I'm a qualified Colby consultant, so I do like a data-driven psychology assessment of the entire team, depending on how big it is. But you know, it and really, I can do my sort of qualitative assessment. I can interview people and things, and we have a very specific way of interviewing a tech team to find out what that team is capable of, but we also do this assessment that helps understand diversity of thought across the team. So, you know, if we take a team of 20 people in the tech team, let's understand how innovative that team is, you know, how good they are at building systems, and then presenting it back to the tech team in data. You know, this is not big fat reports. These are numbers, and I can show the relationships and the connections between them. So I'm talking their language because I'm a techie, but I'm trying to show them, you know, we're going to have to change the way we hire in this team if you really want to meet your growth potential, really. So,
So you wrote a book called People First, right?
oh yeah,
That, okay. How does the people first philosophy influence your approach to technology due diligence and M&A technology integration?
yeah, that's a great question. So on the M&A and the integration part, that's the easy bit because post deal, we have to make two sets of people that don't know each other work well together, and you have that kind of, you know, like, you know, if you take like two different teams, they don't want to show each other the imperfections of their tech solution because everyone has them. Tech is organic, right? So it's quite easy to sell the people side to an integration. Like everyone else is going to look at the ones and zeros, they're going to look at the tech platforms, the cloud platforms, whatever. We're going to come in and we're going to look at your people, right? And we're going to see how do we get them to work the best. Yeah, and that starts with increasing their awareness. So if we can get the awareness of each other aligned, they will be much better when they merge. So that's the easy side, which is the integration side. On the pre-deal side, it's a little bit more sensitive because deals, investment deals are a negotiation. It's not a done deal. So if an investor says, "Hey, I want to look at your tech, Mike, but also I want to look at your team and the psychology of it," it can ruffle some feathers, you know, and depending on the sensitivity of
Yeah.
the deal and the access to management, we have to just decide if it's appropriate. And in many cases, usually the tech is good enough, the P&L is good enough, and the market is good enough for a deal to go through, right? So you use all of these skills to really fine tune and, you know, make the best for everyone in there, really. So
Yeah, I always found that like when I would take over a tech department, I always found that the person before me didn't spend a lot of time helping their team understand what each other does. And
yeah,
like they'd have a basic understanding. That's the DBA, you know. But
yeah.
what are that person's actual responsibilities? So yeah, I think accountability, empower the staff, you know, to make decisions on their own. I think those things are extremely important. As a leader, how do you foster a connected and innovative culture within your team?
Before I answer that, just of interest, where you were saying that you were coming in to look at teams and they weren't really looking at how the skill sets and the nuances of those responsibilities. Now, I was just curious how you would sort of approach that with these teams. Is there a way that you sort of do that, or is it dependent on the company?
Well, I during a one particular period, I was working like 105 hours a week, and I knew it had to stop. So I came
Whoa.
up with, yeah, I started coming up with a system to make that stop, and it actually turned into something that I call the PACE system now. And basically, it teaches everybody accountability. But the key piece is that on a monthly basis, we would have a team meeting that was like a big. It was required by the company that I worked at, and I've since
Sure.
kept it with me. And we would have this team meeting, and one of the sections would always be what's working and what's not working. And we would, you know,
Okay.
celebrate the things that are working, but then the things that are not working. Let's just say, for example, that it has something to do with the email server and there's a problem, maybe it's too much spam or it's running out of disk space or something. Well, I might put the help desk manager as the key stakeholder for that, and have them
Yeah.
drive the process of getting it fixed. What it did was it put that help desk manager alongside that email management, server management person, and they learned what each other did, and they got to see
Yeah.
it firsthand, and they also got to help hold that person accountable in the future. And I would do that. I'd mix them up, and I would do that, and it just exposed the team to what everyone else was doing. But then the other key thing was I didn't try to do their job for them. That was a big
Yeah.
one. So many. I mean, I don't even want to call it micromanaging because micromanaging is like, where they pretty much have their thumb on the person. But there are just people
Yeah.
out there, leaders out there who like they think it's easier if they just take care of these things themselves. And I always said, you hired a person to do a particular job, let them do the job. There's a reason you hired them. Let them do the job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of like imagine if you had an automobile and you just took the carburetor out because you just didn't like it. It didn't look good to you.
Yeah.
Car's not going to run. So it's the same thing with a team. If you don't have all the pieces and you don't allow them to do what they're meant to do,
Yeah.
your team doesn't run as well. It's pretty straightforward. So
Yeah, yeah. And I think on top of that, you lose the knowledge, right? This
yeah,
in the knowledge of the team, and it's we can't be binary. We need to be creative on how we mold people together. And I think there is this kind of utopian view of diversity in teams, but diversity only works if the leadership can accept it and manage it in diverse ways. And you have to accept people in different ways. And I think that's a great thing to watch, right? So don't try it unless you're willing to go down that route, I think. And I did remember your question about fostering innovation within the team. So I wasn't deflecting. Um, but I know, but but the whole thing is right. With our job, like we get a really short time to look at a business, right? We come in. I love the job because in the past I would have got months to look at it. Now I normally get about 2 days, and everything has to be told back to the investors within 2 weeks, really. And you read everything, you interview people. It's like this crazy amount of work. You're really coming in as like this CTO, and you're coming in to say, this is what we need to do with this business. If you had your money, we had to do this thing. And so innovation and culture, you have to look at all of the aspects, people, technology, processes, the old, adage of the thing. So then what we have to present afterwards is this the goal, sort of the Lincoln thing, is it like the 100-day plan of what we're going to do. That's very big in the M&A market. So we can't get to that M&A, that 100-day plan unless we know what technology they had, what the investment thesis is, what the growth plans are, where are the skills gap, and what are we trying to do? And you knit that all together with some finances and off you go. So we can't do it, just like you were saying with your, the leadership you're working with. We can't do it without any of the help in that team, but it's possible.
so we've talked a little bit about you have a big interest in tech team psychology. So could you possibly share like a surprising or maybe counterintuitive insight that you've discovered about how team dynamics ultimately influences project outcomes?
Yep. The immediate one that comes to mind is assessing a team where like this, when they're dispersed, even before COVID, and like the CTO doesn't know the right people. And I think it's a little bit like you were saying before. There was a situation where we were working with the CTO, and he's the leader for that business. It's the technology, and had people in all different countries. But he sort of confided with me and said, "Hutton, I really hate public speaking. I hate it. I hate doing this, and I have to get up on the stage, and I have to do these things every 6 months." So, and that was really honest of him, right? But when we looked around the business, we found somebody in a different country who actually was an ex-teacher. And because of his tech role, he'd been put in the dungeon, right? Because he was like I don't know, like a end user guy, right? So in terms of like the tech hierarchy, he's over there not to be seen. And we said to the CTO, well, look, this guy was a trained speaker for years. Why can't we use him as one of your speakers to do like a lot of the things on a regular basis? Of course, you're going to have to do the big presentations. You can't get away with that. But what you can do with this person, he could be your like the person who makes the videos on a weekly basis and does all this sort of stuff. And not only are you fixing your problem, you're igniting this person's real skill. Fine, he's good at computers, but the real thing he's good at is engaging people. And in terms of the hierarchy, you're dealing with one person at the top and one person in the sort of the bottom of the tech thing and bringing them up here. And so, yeah, if people are open enough, there's a lot of creativity, and it's a very small thing, and that's more about culture than project outcome. But it is the first thing that comes to mind with your question, really. If we're allowed to just look at people as people, not their roles and not their tech capability, we can move them around into different positions.
That's brilliant. Like using, like you said, like if they're putting out a regular video every week for whatever purpose, having that person be
Yeah,
like the face on that video is a great idea. And it probably also motivates them a little bit more even in their job because they're not just stuck, like you say, in the dungeon. They're getting out
yeah,
there and they're being like the face of the department. That's actually a really cool idea. So I want you to use
yeah.
your imagination for a minute. And if you could invent a new technology tool or platform tomorrow that would solve a major challenge in the M&A technology process, integration process, what would it look like and what problem would it solve?
I'll quickly answer that, and it's going to sound like a pitch. There's a piece of technology we're building, um, and it is literally I found all these patterns that everyone who's about to merge, they all have the same issues. So we've built a platform where founders can just learn what they should be doing, and it just gives them a way of working out their maturity before they go for the M&A. So that's that piece, and I'm very passionate about that, and it's my pet project for a long time. But I would give you a different piece of technology that I think would be lovely if it was out there for tech teams as general is an app that helps build the like the what do they call it when we get together for every quarter? It's kind of like the all hands type meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah. So now we have global dispersed teams that are working from home that never see each other. And now companies bring them together once, twice, three times a year, often in beautiful locations, right? And I've been lucky enough in my psychology of tech teams hat. I've been lucky enough to be taken to my clients' all hands meetings, and they're great. But I have noticed that it would be great to have an app that would help manage those events because they are events, right? And they're events of people coming together, going to restaurants, going to bars, places they've never been to before, and but there are also lots of tech sessions, so it's like a scheduling tool, and it's not highly technical, but it's very much in my lane, which is about making people work better together. That's probably a silly technical thing, but to me, it's an important thing for helping
Sure.
companies
Sure.
build well.
So the people I feel the worst for, generally speaking, in business are the new managers. Someone who's newly put in charge of an IT department or maybe a part of the IT department. And they never seem to know exactly what to do. They haven't been trained to go into that role. So if
Yeah,
you look back on your
yeah.
career, what's one piece of advice you got early on that you found invaluable and possibly even altered your professional trajectory?
That's a really good question. First of all, I do remember that role where I positioned in that position, right? And you're like this burning fire where everything is like, oh my
Right.
gosh, I've got these people, I've got projects to manage, I've got a financial plan, all these things. And so that I would say positively, that's the best thing about work is that they will take a chance on people and do things. So that's that side. The I think really for me personally, it was to slow down and listen, right? Because I came from a highly fast technical background. I am still hands-on now, right? So, and with tech hands-on, it's instant gratification. You type something, you do something, it happens. The dopamine hit is instant with tech. The dopamine hit with people is not. So you've got to and people aren't gonna do things just because you said it once, like it would with a computer.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I just had a guest on not that long ago who I asked him if he had any advice for new managers, and he said take people out to lunch when you first start, and
Hmm.
and then ask them a couple of questions, but then just listen. Listen to what they have to say.
Yeah,
Ask them things like, how do you like to be communicated to? What motivates you to do better? and then listen and make note of that, because you really can't manage people properly unless you understand who they are and what they like, right? I mean, one of the my wife and I run a virtual assistant agency, and one of the
Okay.
problems that clients run into all the time is they want to communicate to that virtual assistant the way they're the most comfortable, be it Slack, text message, WhatsApp, who knows.
Yeah.
But we always tell
Yeah.
them when they run into problems, have you asked the VA how they like to be communicated with?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, if you're not communicating to them in the way that they like, they probably miss half of what you say. It doesn't look good overall for the for your project to be completed correctly. So I loved that advice because, it's like you said, listen. You have to listen more. You got that advice to
Yeah.
listen more. And I think all too often leaders talk way too much. They want to be, hey, I'm the one that makes the decisions. Everybody knows that. You don't need to like puff up and show that. Everyone knows you're the boss. So maybe quiet down a little bit and listen to what they have to say. I know for me, I always surrounded myself on my teams with really innovative people. And why wouldn't I listen to them? They're going to have ideas that I would never think of in a million years. So,
Yeah.
but that leads me to another question for you about innovation. So, this is kind of looking ahead. What emerging technology or possibly a trend do you think is going to significantly impact the M&A sector in the next decade?
Oh, that's a good one. Very quickly on listening as well,
Mhm.
I would highly recommend the book by a lady called Nancy Klein. It's called Time to Think. And she's an American lady that lives here in the UK, and I've been trained by her. And it's incredible, incredible training. And you first go in, and she's trained the board of Google, she's trained people on and when you first go to that training, it is odd, I can't give it away. You have to read the book. It's really good.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that. So what's going to change M&A? That's a really good one. I'm not going to go for AI, right? Because
Yeah, that's the easy
that's just
one.
on the list. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think from my seat, I see two things going on, like literally. So I feel like I have the front seat of watching people make dreams, right? That's literally, I sit there and I'm watching investors and founders. Um, and the most areas that I see a lot of work going on is in healthcare, right? And so that's and so you see the money going in certain directions. So health tech is the last few years a lot of deals around there and then what people are doing. So we are seeing some amazing ideas, and it is with AI, I have to say, but what they're able to detect and how they can speed things up. And I'm seeing service providers connect with small companies, and that's really disrupting in that way. The other one is not a very exciting one, but I see it as very exciting, is compliance. We're becoming more compliant, ESG and sort of energy consumption and things like that. And and in the M&A market, that's quite interesting because we can see that more of it's coming, and that the market is human beings. That the market's massive. It's not niche, and so I see that as something really big. I see a lot of activity personally in those areas. So I think because there's activity and there's interest, that disrupts because more money is put in that direction.
That makes sense. So as tech people, I mean, I mentioned I was working 105 hours a week at one point, and I knew I had to change that. But
Mm.
we have a demanding career, and it requires a lot of dedication. So how do you balance the professional demands with personal interests, so like hobbies, whatnot? How do you balance the two?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. It really depends on your stage of where you are in your career. So
Yeah,
like giving away my first question to a CTO, CIO that I will work with. The first question is, let me look at your calendar. Number one, right? And if will they show it to me? And I can tell a lot just by looking at the calendar, because the more senior you have, the more responsibilities and the more you cut it up. And if you came from an engineering background, your calendar is empty because the ideal day you want is building stuff the whole day. And your whole day might be 12 hours a day. You don't
right.
care, you enjoy it, right? So you do this completely empty calendar because all of your time is engineering. But as you move and you have to communicate with people, it's almost like going back to school where your time is sliced into hours and you have to move it around. It's like Tetris as you move all this stuff around. Yeah. The maturity of an engineer to CTO or CIO is quite evident just from the calendar. So my quick answer to you is on a personal basis is very good calendar management, yeah, and prioritizing things like playing tennis with my daughter. That's at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. Shouldn't be, but it is, right? It's sort of, and of course it should be. That's when she's available. It doesn't matter when I am, and that that's probably my number one. My number two is I read quite a few good sort of spiritually books in my 30s, which really set me on a much more healthier sort of direction, if you like. So they helped me quite well.
Yeah, I agree with you on the calendar issue. I think that there's one of the things I tell my clients when they're talking about like achieving work-life balance is I say you have to have things in your calendar that aren't negotiable. Like they're, the proverbial, they're written in pen.
Mm.
They're not penciled in, they're penned in. It needs to be things
Mm.
like, take your partner out on a date.
Exactly. Yeah.
Spend time with the kids. You have to put that in there. And all too
Hmm.
often what people do is they don't schedule those things and then um off they go. They get home, they don't spend the time with the kids, they don't spend the time with their partner. They do something else or maybe do nothing, and then it's years go by and they look back and they go, oh my gosh, I missed all this time with my kids and my wife,
Mm.
etc. And I think it's important to remember that and you're right, it does depend on the time in your career, but once you get to like a C-suite level position, um, yeah, you're going to work hours and you're going to work hard, but you also have to have time set aside for yourself. And that's, what I
Yeah.
learned with the 105-hour weeks was I didn't have time for myself. I basically had time to sleep,
Mm.
eat, and work, and that was it.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
not sustainable long term. And, most of it was just, cleaning up a mess that I inherited. But once that
Yeah.
was under control and I put some systems in place and started putting like dead stops in the calendar, like I started doing things like working from home on Tuesdays. And,
Yeah.
it was because I knew like my kids had soccer practice on Tuesdays. So now I can go to soccer practice because I'm already home. Things like that are just super important. And, your insight on that
I,
is
I think there's one more thing. You have to be honest with yourself and check in with yourself. Like I'll
good
be
point.
honest today. I kind of just have this thought and think, you know what? The last 2 weeks I have been working too much. So even though I know the right things, sometimes it drags in, and that's okay on a temporary basis. Now the next 2 weeks, my job is to sort of balance it again. So it's a kind of an ebb and flow. It's okay
Always.
to go over for a while and then come back. So I was thinking today, I haven't seen the kids enough in the evenings. Okay, great. We'll just change schedules a little bit. And of course, like all of us, we have phone calls saying, "Oh, can you get this done? Got this new project. Can we do these things?" And you're going to say yes, it's natural, but there's also a way of containing things. So yeah, it's interesting, really.
So, in today's fast-paced technology sector, the executives face the constant challenge of staying focused and productive amidst a sea of distractions. Traditional solutions like energy drinks or countless cups of coffee can provide a temporary fix, but those come with undesirable health implications due to excessive caffeine consumption. So I went on a search and I found this product called Magic Mind. It's going to be your new secret weapon in the battle for peak performance. More than just an energy shot, Magic Mind is meticulously crafted. It's a daily elixir designed to enhance your focus and clarity without the downsides of traditional stimulants. Imagine the serene focus of herbal tea fused with the power-packed benefits of matcha, nootropics, and adaptogens. These ingredients work in synergy to provide cognitive function, reduce stress, and sustain your energy levels, ensuring that you stay sharp and productive throughout the entire day, not just the first half. But Magic Mind isn't just about what's inside the bottle, it's about how it makes you feel outside. Since integrating Magic Mind into my daily routine, I've noticed a remarkable transformation in my productivity and mental clarity. The mid afternoon slump has become a thing of the past, replaced by sustained energy and focus that lasts all day. For my fellow tech executives seeking a healthier, more effective solution to boost focus and productivity, I highly recommend giving Magic Mind a try. And there's no better time than now to experience the benefits for yourself because my friends at Magic Mind have given us a nice little discount. Head over to magicmind.com/gaining technology to explore how Magic Mind can revolutionize your daily routine. Our listeners enjoy an exclusive offer up to 50% off on subscriptions for the next 10 days or 20% off a single purchase with the code Tech Leadership. Don't miss this opportunity to elevate your focus and productivity. Head over to magicmind.com/gaining technology and use the code Tech Leadership at checkout. Plus, for those who prefer shopping in person, this offer is also valid at Sprouts Farmers Market stores. Join the ranks of tech leaders who have discovered the Magic Mind difference. Say goodbye to reliance on caffeine and hello to your most focused, productive self yet. Yeah, no, it really is. But so time's flying by. I really appreciate the time you spent with me. Why don't you let the listeners know how they could connect with you if they'd like to?
That would be great. Thanks, Mike. So I've got a link tree. So the old linktr/Hutton Henry. That's my personal note. On there, there's a graphic novel on the whole psychology of tech teams. And there's lots of resources and a reference to that software that we've built called Lens, which helps the founders really prep for investment on their own without expensive people like us, which is the whole idea. So yeah, be happy to chat to anyone if they've got any questions, really.
Great, great. Well, I'll make sure that gets into the notes and there'll be a card on the screen for that as well. So, but I appreciate your
Awesome.
time. Thanks again for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to
I
Gaining
think
the
we've got a similar
Technology
interest.
Leadership Edge. And that is all for today.